Thank you for attending today's webinar on Common Core, FERPA, and what you should know about both, brought to you by DataLink Networks and EdgeWave. We'll have time at the end of the presentation for Q&A, so please enter your questions in the questions window on the right side of the screen. And there's going to be a lot of content in today's presentation, so we've made it downloadable via PDF. You can see this is also located on the right side of your screen. And please mute your phones to avoid outside noise. Today's presenters are Mike Fleetwood, Senior Business Development and Services Manager with Synex. Mike is an E-rate and K-12 technology expert. And Farley Stewart, Vice President of Product Management at EdgeWave. And Farley is a cybersecurity expert. Today's topics are how to assess and test your students the way you want, how to integrate your technology into day-to-day instruction, how to ensure the privacy of your student records, and finally, how technology can enforce SIPA and FERPA. And with that, I'll hand over to Mike Fleetwood.
Great. Thank you, Patrick. Can you hear me okay?
You sound great, Mike.
All right. Thank you, guys. Well, thanks for joining today and taking time out of your busy schedule. As Patrick said, I'm, expert is technology expert's kind of a fleeting term. That might be today, but tomorrow, who knows what the world will bring. So I started my career as a clinical therapist and a counselor for adjudicated minors in a residential and psychiatric facilities. So I worked with kids and decided to make a turn to technology in '95 and have been working with schools all over the country ever since. So I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to something that I'm passionate about. So next slide, please. We're going to talk a little bit about not so much of things that you don't know, but we want you to know that we also know. People like DataLink Networks and EdgeWave are spending a lot of time understanding what's coming down the road with school districts in Common Core and FERPA and compliancy and all the funding issues that go along with that and E-rate. So we really want you to know that you have partners out here that are spending time learning what they can about the things that you're dealing with day to day. Next slide, please. So this slide is really kind of funny. This is 1800s to 2000. Actually, we probably ought to break down the 2000s and dissect it into years. So education is changing quickly. So quickly that in times it's very hard to keep up on. For example, I'll throw you out a couple little facts that I think you may find interesting, and these are nationwide polls that have gone out, that 60 to 70% of all the jobs that students that graduate in 2018 have not even been created yet. So 60 to 70% of all the jobs these students are going to be fulfilling when they graduate from school have not even been created yet. So to prepare for an educator, to prepare students to meet this need, it's a moving target, but we do it by really focusing on the things that Common Core speaks to, is the creativity, the critical thinking, communication and collaboration. Those are the things that are really driving education going forward, because they're going to be fulfilling roles that we're not aware of. Also, another fact that you may find very interesting is 3 years ago, there were no Chromebooks. Chromebooks had not really flooded into the educational market. 3 years later, they own 57% of all new devices sold into education. So for us to be able to see the future, it's very difficult. Who would have thought the growth of Google and Chrome and Chromebooks going forward? But that's what we're tasked with, and that's where a cooperation between folks that are in the industry and folks that are educators really bring some relevance together so that one can be looking down the road and seeing what's coming and the other ones can be looking at what education is doing. Next slide, please. So Common Core, whether you're a supporter or whether you think it's crazy, it really doesn't matter. It's here. We're learning to deal with it. It has good points. It has bad points. As an educator, I'm sure you have much more impact and much more information about it than I do. But let's face it, it's about measuring, matrices. In our business world, we're all measured. We have performance matrices. We have things that we have to do. And now we're seeing that that's hitting education as well. Our students have to catch up. I mean, I think that's a common theme. We see that students are falling behind, and I want you to know that the industry is looking at ways to help you achieve your goals, your learning goals, and preparing students for career readiness or higher education. Next slide, please. So, over the years, it's not reading, writing, and arithmetic anymore. It's all changing. The world is different, for better or worse. That's the way it is, and we're learning to adapt. Our role as a distributor of technology, as DataLink Networks, your integration partner, and DataLink, or an EdgeWave, a awesome solution provider, vendor, our job is to come together and figure out the things that we can do to assist you in preparing your students for the millennium. So that's what this webinar is about, is to let you know that we are on that path, we are working hard, and we're ready to partner with you to help you achieve those learning goals. Next slide, please. So it's, as I mentioned, it's about collaboration, critical thinking, creativity, and communication. That is not traditional in old school education. These are new concepts. Many of you may have already adopted this. Many of you may be way ahead of the curve. But as we're looking at things that we're doing, we're looking at collaboration. The things that Microsoft and Google can bring together is really extending the classroom, allowing folks to learn anywhere, anytime, on any device, so that the teachers can collaborate directly with students as they're working on their assignments in Google Docs or OneNote, where they can communicate through social media together, whether it's Skype for Business or whether it's Google Hangouts. The ability to take that environment and spread it throughout the whole day and creating a longer learning environment is critical, because if our students are going to catch up, we have to do a good job of providing them a better learning environment and experience. But the most common theme that I hear from schools, and I'm very fortunate as I get to meet with a lot of them, is the security, and it's very important. And I think with EdgeWave, they're going to be able to talk with you about how they can provide you that peace of mind that your data and systems are secure as you move towards this collaborative, creative, communicative way of educating. Next slide, please. The shared vision is really important. Not only sharing for us as vendors and providers to share your vision as educators on what you need to do your job, but we also have to understand the vision of the students. Today, the world is Xbox and PS3 or 4 or whatever the number is now. Kids immediately evolve to technology. They know how to work stuff. Their moms and dads are still trying to figure out how to make phone calls. Kids are downloading apps. And I know that in an environment of education, it's very intimidating for teachers to think that the students know more about what than they do about the technology they're using. But it really offers a new collaborative learning experience where kids can now help teachers with the technology while teachers still deliver curriculum that's meaningful to help them learn and grow and prepare for their life. So the dynamics are changing. We're seeing teachers becoming facilitators of curriculum versus deliverer of, the message and instruction. And as those dynamics change, we're here to let you know that we're aware of that, and we are working hard to provide services that will help you in doing those things. Next slide, please. So, if you haven't been to Project Red, I suggest everybody, get a little involved. There's some great information. We are talking to a lot of different folks. And so if you're aware of these things, please don't take offense that we're showing them to you. But we do meet with schools in very rural locations that don't get all of the information they need. So we share these things on the slides so they have access to them. Next slide, please. The day used to be where the device was king. When I started working with school districts, I'd go in, I'd meet with them, and they'd say, hey, we got to replace a lab. And they would look at their budget, and they would determine what was the best device that they could buy for their money. But those days are gone. It's not about the device anymore. It really never was. As a reseller and IT coordinator, that's what we focused on, but it was for the teachers, it was about their software. What are they doing in the classroom? How are they using Word or Google Docs to prepare their students for the world? So really, it's not about the device anymore. More and more with Chromebooks and Android tablets and Microsoft Windows 10, you're seeing a real cloud-based solution coming to the table so that students can get access to their data anywhere, anytime, from any device, as long as they have a good internet connection and a secure, safe internet connection. And I think that's key. We don't want the wild, wild west with our students. We don't want to just turn it loose and expect that they know how to protect themselves. So as educators, IT directors, curriculum specialists, and as vendors and service providers, we need to look at how we can protect our students, your students, from the evils that are out on the web. And I think that Farley's going to address that better than I ever could. So next slide, please. So really, if the old saying, if you don't have a plan, you don't have, a prayer. You really need the plan. Planning is more critical today because things are moving so quickly. We are aware of that. We have a team that we work with Data Link Networks that can help with every asset of planning. A couple things that aren't on here that we can provide: we have grant specialists. We have folks that can help you write your RFPs. We have people that can help with your E-rate program. There's a lot of things that are now being required, and we are also aware that nobody's driving by a armored car full of money for schools to accomplish these things that they're now being required or encouraged to do. We're able to help. We have experts on staff. We've got ex-educators. I'm a former tech coordinator. We've got E-rate specialists. We've got grant specialists, and they are all accessible to you through Data Link Network. So please reach out and get them involved if there's anything that you need. There's physical security. There's digital signage. There's a lot of money out there that's flooding into education, but if you don't know how to take advantage of it, it's very hard to get. Next slide, please. So we're aware of learning goals. We would love to help discuss learning goals. We love to sit down and try to map out where a school wants to go and help bring solutions to the table that are going to help them accomplish that. When I was a tech coordinator, I helped 7 school districts in West Central Illinois get past Y2K. kind of dates me a little bit. But my job was to be in the fishbowl. I needed to worry about all of the infrastructure and the servers and all the software and everything that I needed to support. And so my time was spent living in the fishbowl and making sure that it was functional. It's very difficult to keep your eyes on the outside of the fishbowl, what's coming, where the new technologies are, what the new products bring to the table when you're so focused on making everything work inside the bowl. I would recommend that you partner with companies like Data Link Network and let them bring those new technologies to you so you have time to review them, and then matching the technology to the learning goals. It's really not about the technology anymore. It's about what that technology is going to do to help you assess your students, deliver instruction, and raise their scores and testing. Next slide, please. So 21st century learning, people are turning. Technology is not the only way to achieve Common Core proficiency. It's not the only way to raise testing scores, but where the kids live is in the technology world, so it may be the most effective if your teachers know how to do it. And so we understand what's coming down the pipe, the communication, the collaboration, critical thinking, creativity that we've already touched on. But where a school is successful or not successful, in most cases that we see, is how well their staff and how well their teachers are prepared to deliver instruction through technology, not use technology, but through technology in their classroom. If that is ever an issue for you, please reach out. We have excellent teachers that are either retired or active school teachers that specialize in technology integration and instruction, and they can absolutely work through Data Link Networks to come out and do a Train the Trainers program to help you with any of your learning plans. So please reach out to them. They have a wide variety of solutions, and they will help you achieve the 21st century goals that you have now. Thank you. Next slide. So the dynamic of change, digital learning requires careful planning. We have also seen some unsuccessful rollouts, and that's not to create fear, but if you are in one or you have seen one, the good news is that a careful plan fixes it all. If you've rolled out devices that aren't being integrated, it can be fixed. If you've spent a lot of money implementing technology and it just isn't doing what you want, that can be addressed. There is not a problem that a good plan cannot overcome. So my suggestion is, if you've run into that, or if you know somebody that has run into that, and they're not truly getting the benefit that they want out of their digital learning, please reach out to Data Link Networks, and they can absolutely connect you up with some awesome consultants that will help you through that. Next slide, please. So this do your homework is not for you, the schools, it's for us. So next slide. But we know that, as I said, it's very hard to live in the fishbowl and see everything that's going on. There are so many things that folks like Data Link Networks have to their advantage through their relationship with us at Synnex. We're a distributor. You probably don't know of us, but we help them with procuring equipment. But we also have a grants department that can help with researching grants, researching funding. I don't know if you're aware, but FEMA has released a very large grant for emergency management and physical security for K-12 school districts. You have E-rate funding, which was $3.9 billion last year, and the last numbers that came in were less than 20% of all schools turned in for funding last year. The good news, everybody that turned in for funding was funded. So that's the first time in the history of USAC and E-rate that 100% of the requests that went in that were done correctly were funded. So if you don't have an E-rate strategy, it's time. If you do have an E-rate strategy, congratulations, but make sure it's as effective as you want it to be. And if you feel there's gaps or holes or things you'd like to investigate a little bit further, please reach out. We have excellent resources and we can help you with that. Next slide, please. So assessments. If you're in a position where you're not sure where you are, we're absolutely able to assist you with that as well. Assessing a school's need is not just about the curriculum and the framework, but what about your wireless network? Most of these devices that are coming out now don't have network ports, Ethernet jacks. You can't plug them in. They are wireless only. So the need for enterprise level wireless is critical. Before you roll out a bunch of devices that turn into paperweights on a network that can't handle them, do your job and assess your network. Assess your professional development. Know where the teachers are in delivering instruction through technology. And we can help you with that. Next slide, please. We actually provide a free one-to-one readiness assessment through Data Link Networks. It's a series of questions that are answered by administrators, teachers, and IT staff that help them get a feel to where they are in comparison to where they want to go, and where they may be in comparison to what other people are doing. And it really gives you a baseline start to say, are we going in the right path? Are we headed in the right decision? Have we leveraged our dollars to get us where we want to go? So it's a great opportunity, and if that comes up, if you have questions about that, or even if you'd like to verify that what you're doing is consistent with what other people are doing across the country, please reach out to Data Link Networks and they'll help you get set up. There's no charge to it, so there's really very little risk, except you might learn something. So next slide, please. Professional development. As I said earlier, the most common success that we see are those with a good professional development plan. Where I lived and the schools that I worked with, and I know this is probably not any of you guys, but we had the same teachers over and over going to Word classes or Word 201, and that was great. They were doing their best to educate themselves and learn, but it really wasn't being integrated into the classroom. Professional development today is not about the teachers knowing how to do things, but how to get the students to do things. And I think that's really changed over the last few years, and I see some great programs out there. If you feel that that's something that you need help with, or you want to measure how your professional development's going, or if you want to reach out and help others with professional development, let your folks know at Data Link Network again, and we'd be more than happy to work with you on that. Next slide. You know, STEAM funding, there's a lot coming at you. As a school district, there's more. You're having to do more with less. We understand that. As a matter of fact, we see a lot of places where IT staff is reducing and instructional staff is increasing because of the need to integrate the technology with the instruction. And sometimes that's very hard. It's very hard for IT folks to even imagine that every student, administrator, and teacher would have the device that they need to manage. but it is doable, and it can be successful with some good planning and obviously with funding. Next slide, please. So be aware of E-rate. If you're not in it, get in it. If you need help with it, like I said, reach out to us. We're more than happy to help you. A few changes that have happened with E-rate is they're no longer funding servers. They're no longer funding backup or any kind of UPS for servers or domain controllers. So a lot of folks are looking to the cloud. A lot of things, would you switch to the next slide, please? So here's a list of things that are no longer funded. Servers, software, storage devices, telephone components. If you have been getting funding for your telephone service over the years, you need to be aware that over the next 3 to 4 years, phone funding is going to be phased out. Each year going forward, it's going to be reduced by a percentage mark until in 4 years, it's to be phased out altogether. So to be ahead of that and prepare on what you're going to do when your phone is no longer funded is very important. Things that have been funded, like I said, servers are being replaced now. Next slide, please. So the roadmap, be ready. Funding is now. The 471 season or the 470 season is on us. We are able to request quotes and proposals. We need to have our matrices all figured out on how we were going to measure the quotes, and the season is upon us. I know many people wait until the last minute, and when they do, they get last-minute type of responses. If you're really, really invested in changing the environment of your school, invest early. Try to get your folks to look at what they're trying to do long-term, and start working on your E-rate planning now. Next slide, please. So if you need help with grants, here's a slide that's for you, www.grants.gov. It lists a lot of your K-12 grants. If you have grant folks at your school, they'll be able to take care of it. If you need assistance with that, we'll obviously be able to help you as well. Next slide, please. And here's your American Grant Writers Association. If you don't feel you have the talent to actually win the grants, if you have not been successful in writing and winning grants, there is an organization that is specific for that, and they work very well in the K-12 and higher ed environment and assisting folks in receiving money. Next slide, please. So where we're seeing a lot of things grow in schools is audiovisual, whiteboards, interactive boards, digital signage, kiosks, point-of-sale solutions, a lot of things that are coming into play that many of our schools have reached out and need help with. If that's you, if you're looking for better signage opportunities or solutions, you're looking out for sound systems, you're trying to leverage your E-rate funding to deliver different solutions into education, Data Link Networks is absolutely prepared to assist you with that, with our support from the manufacturers. Feel free to reach out. We would love to help you with those needs. Next slide, please. So Google and Microsoft. If you're not aware, I just want to leave with this last note. Google Chrome, the Google Apps for Education is free for schools. Free for schools. They provide every user on a school domain with a terabyte of storage. As you're looking at the decreased funding with E-rate, you can look at web solutions like Google. Microsoft has the same thing, a free terabyte of storage for all users. You have two awesome solutions with Microsoft and Google that can help a school reduce their costs, bring down the cost it takes to support all of these systems, put stuff in the cloud long term, and reallocate those funds to the devices that you need to provide instruction for your students. I know Data Link Network, I keep mentioning their name, but these guys are positioned with both Microsoft and Google to absolutely help you go find out which strategy works best for you. And in my book, why choose? They're both free. Why not have them both? If you're preparing your students for the world, they need to know Microsoft and they need to know Chrome and Google. That's who knows where they're going to go, what school they're going to go to. When the cost involved, you don't really have to choose. Next slide, please. So that's it, guys. I hope there was something that was beneficial, and it's now time for me to be quiet and turn this show over to Farley Stewart, VP Product Manager for EdgeWave.
Well, great. Thank you, Mike. That was tremendous information. Really exciting actually to see, how much things have changed. As Mike mentioned, I'm the VP of Product Management here at EdgeWave. But my background goes back quite a ways, and the company I founded back in the mid-90s are focused almost exclusively on helping K-12 and community colleges connect to the internet. It was very difficult to connect to the internet in the mid-90s, and it was a pretty exciting time. If those of you who remember that back time, I remember there was the virtual frog. This was what allowed you to actually go online and kind of dissect a frog. And it was one of their very early learning applications, and it was very exciting to a lot of schools who were on the internet for the first time, and there wasn't the tremendous wealth of content that was there. But boy, have we changed over this time period. So we help many schools connect to the internet, and one of the things that we found is, as people were very excited about getting the content, the next thing schools asked us about was, but how do we keep the kids safe online? How do we keep them out of those things that are inappropriate? So we actually developed at that point a product we called iPrism. That was the first web filtering appliance that made it very easy for schools to enforce policies, provide safe access. And that's a product that continues to be used in schools today. We serve about 30%. So EdgeWave is very focused on education as our customers, with about 30% of our overall business. Now, beyond iPrism, we've continued to evolve, and there's a number of capabilities and technology solutions that we offer out today that are appropriate for schools. And I'll take you through a few of those. So if you look at things like web security, obviously in the connected classroom, the cloud solutions that Mike's talking about, these are all accessed over the web. And there are a number of challenges that schools need to deal with here. The first notion is HIPAA compliance. Mike talked about E-Rate. Now, E-Rate doesn't fund any type of web filtering solution or URL filtering solution, but it is a requirement to be HIPAA compliant in order to be able to receive E-Rate funding. So organizations and schools need to be able to deal with this regulation, keep it safe. What compounds that is this notion of SSL, TLS. These are secure communications over the web, and nowadays, 30 to 40% of all web traffic on the internet is encrypted using SSL. That adds in terms of to the security of the information flow, but it also creates a number of challenges. One is, how do you inspect that content to make sure it's safe? And another is search engines, particularly Google, who have a safe search function. Google now redirects all HTTP traffic to an HTTPS or an SSL encrypted site, and that completely removes the ability for you to basically enforce safe search for those sites unless you look at safe search. So if you have in place, some type of acceptable use policy today, but you haven't addressed the issue of how do you inspect SSL traffic, you're probably not implementing safe search, and kids are probably allowed to get to a lot of stuff in search engines that probably isn't what you want them to be involved with. The other aspect is security. When we started in the mid-90s, security was relatively simple. Today, security is incredibly complex. The malware that's created is massive in terms of both complexity and in terms of volumes each and every day. So clearly that's an issue that schools have to deal with. So we help in these areas in terms of HIPAA compliance. The iPrism is designed to be able to enforce whatever your acceptable use policy is, whatever you feel is appropriate for your students, keeping them safe online. That iPrism can allow you to implement that policy and enforce it, both from a reporting and a monitoring and a blocking perspective. We also do SSL inspection. That means that we can actually sit in the middle of an encrypted SSL transaction, and we can inspect that content. So instead of being blind to where students are actually going, we can see not just the initial website that they go to, but all the URLs, all the information that they're actually accessing. By inspecting the SSL, you can see that, you can log that, you can record that, and you can apply a policy to those URLs. So if somebody's going to Tumblr and they're accessing stuff, information below that's inappropriate. It also helps you deal with the safe search. By inspecting the SSL traffic, now Google Safe Search can be enforced, and you can make sure that if students are going to search engines and they're searching for things, that inappropriate content does not come back. On the malware side, iPrism performs real-time malware analysis. What that means is, in addition to keeping students from going to websites that are malicious via the URL, we actually look at all the downloads. So if somebody's downloading something from the internet, and it's an executable Word file, something with macros, we will actually analyze that file as it's coming into your organization to make sure that that file is safe, make sure that any malware analysis, and be able to stop anything that basically identifies as malware. So that helps you really maintain the security of your organization. On the email side, FERPA, it's important to keep information safe regarding students. It's important to keep information safe regarding the business and the staff as well. So that's an issue, making sure that information that you do send and you share is appropriately protected. There's also requirements around retention. So if you have email and correspondence and information, around that's student related, regulations require that to be retained for a period of time. So you need to be able to deal with that. How do you deal with all that data? What do you do to make sure that you're able to be in compliance? The third one is also around security, phishing and malware. If you look at the data breaches that are happening, phishing is actually how 25% of them originated. Phishing can go after student information, stuff that students shouldn't share online. They can go after it, and all kinds of things potentially could happen there. Anything from a data breach to much worse things that happen to individual students. So it's important to make sure that these areas are protected. So we offer an ePrison email security. As part of that is the traditional spam protection, but we also include a full suite with it. So it covers things like email encryption, so that you can make sure that email is sent encrypted and in compliance with the regulations. It includes a cloud-based archiving solution. This will basically take and keep, based on whatever retention policy you need to enforce, your email correspondence, everything that's sent and received within your organization, as well as in and out to the internet. And we have what we call zero-minute defense. This is really a capability that's very unique in that it combines automated technology to elevate suspicious emails to a team of analysts that work 24/7 to basically adjust on your behalf the rules, and the analytics associated with stopping that email. And the reason being is that, on the other end of that email is a human, and that human is adapting, and they are changing their tactics, and they are constantly working to get around defenses. And really the only way that you really can adapt as well in the rapid pace that you need to address with these campaigns is to have a human element as part of your defense. And we include that as part of our capability on the email side. Another area is on the network side. Today used to be simple. There was mail, there was web, there might be FTP. Today, there are tremendous numbers of applications, and most of them run over the web. But the difference between running a Facebook app, running Google Apps, running something that might be a time waster or a bandwidth drain, or something that might be downright malicious, like running Tors and BitTorrents within the organization. Understanding the difference between those and being able to apply appropriate policy is a real concern, and it's a real challenge, and it's been a challenge in the past here. So you must be able to know what are the real applications that are running over the web. It's not just the web anymore. We're also saddled with a lot of different products out there, quite frankly. When we look at the kinds of things that you might have in your network, you might have a firewall, you might have some type of intrusion detection, intrusion prevention system. You might have a gateway that does AV scanning, right? You probably have some type of URL filtering. You might want to do some other areas in terms of logging and monitoring. There's a lot of things to consider out there. How do you get remote access in? How do you get access out to the cloud? How do you keep everything secure? So that's another challenge in terms of dealing with issues here. And bottom line on this one is just administrative time is short. Mike talked about how resources are shifting in the learning environment, potentially cutting on IT, but yet the demands for the IT group are even higher with one-to-one programs, everybody having devices. So administrative time dealing with network security is really in short supply. So the way we can help that is with what we call our Epic Next Generation Firewall. And it's a true next generation firewall. That means a couple things. One, from an application perspective, we stop over 6,000 different applications. Identify over 6,000 different applications. That's a huge number. It's head and shoulders above what you'll find in other products. Understanding and being able to identify those applications allows you to apply your policy to those applications, allows you to gain visibility into what's being used within your network, and allows you to control that, meaning make sure that the ones that you want are allowed and given appropriate resources, and the ones that you don't want are either logged and in a way that you can go back to the person and say, hey, you shouldn't be using this, or in some cases, just downright blocked. So that gives you that kind of control. But it's more than that. When you bring the firewall together, applications is a huge part of it. But a next generation firewall, and what we provide, is to be able to combine that application identification and control with other real key security functions. For example, in the firewall is built-in intrusion detection, intrusion prevention. In the firewall is the ability to do malware scanning, AV scanning, the ability to look at data and keywords, the ability to bring in URL filtering so that you can bring that in and consolidate that as well. So a huge benefit in terms of consolidating all of these functions and presenting it to you in a very simple, very intuitive user interface that makes it very simple to be able to do very, very powerful policies. The things that used to be very complex and error-prone are now much simplified, much more, much easier for you to deal with, and quite frankly, much more powerful in what they can accomplish, and much less error-prone. In the next generation firewall we have, one of the key things that you may be, it sounds great that all of these things are together and you can do all of this, but the challenges in the past with UTM solutions, for example, is as you turned on these different capabilities, the performance went to basically a crawl. But with our next generation firewall, it not only has single pane glass security to accommodate these functions, but it has a single pass architecture. And that single pass architecture means you will maintain high performance even with all the functions turned on. So that's a huge benefit. The last one, around administration time is actually a very cool capability that's pretty unique in that, security policies are complex and they need to change, and those things can cause administration time to really get in. Often it's, you don't work on it every day, so you might come back to it, a month later, and it gets complex. So intelligent policy adaptation actually is monitoring your traffic streams, the things that are happening on the network, and it's actually looking at your policy, and it's actually helping highlight for you things that you might be missing or changes that you might want to consider in your policy. So it actually suggests to you how you might want to adapt your policy. And then, of course, it's up to you to actually make those changes, but it is providing you visibility and highlighting changes that are recommended to you based on the traffic flows. And the nice thing here about the firewall as well is we talked about E-rate funding. Well, firewalls are fundable via E-rate. So if you're sitting on an old-style firewall, stateful firewall, or an UTM that potentially is slowing down, it doesn't have the ability to do this kind of granular application, visibility, and control, there's never been a better time. You might as well take the plunge, take advantage of E-rate, and do an upgrade to your firewall so that as you move more and more cloud-connected computing, more and more cloud applications, you've got the ability to make sure that those applications get what they need from a bandwidth perspective, get what they need in terms of they work properly, they do what you need them, and at the same time keep out all the stuff that you don't want. With that, I certainly appreciate everybody joining today. We are going to take some questions. I certainly appreciate everybody joining and taking the time out of your busy schedules. In summary, what EdgeWave is about is really a combination of machine intelligence, artificial intelligence, human intelligence, threat intelligence, wrapped into really 4 key areas: iPrism Web Security, ePrism EMIS Security, our Epic Next Generation Firewall, and another product I didn't spend any time on called Epic Security Assurance, which is really a product that helps you determine whether or not your network has been hacked. So we can help you with that. If you have any interest in pursuing or getting additional information, please do reach out to Data Links Networks. They're our trusted partner in this area. They can advise you in terms of EdgeWave products as well as many of the other areas that Mike mentioned today. So with that, I want to conclude, and we're going to take a few questions here, and I'll turn it back to Patrick.
Perfect. Hey, thanks, Farley. Thanks, Mike. That was great information. As Farley mentioned, now is the time for questions. If you have anything, please enter it in the toolbar to the right. Also, please don't forget to download the presentation. There's a PDF of it also anchored to the toolbar to the right. We do have one question. I guess this will probably go to Mike. Do you see any changes coming with government funding?
Oh, that's a good one. With the government, I guess it's hard to predict, but we're seeing more and more technology grants coming through the grant method versus the actual funding method. So there's a lot more money being put into Title I. We're seeing money putting into all the different title funding mechanisms, but really you're seeing grants. So, back to my comments again, I really think that you want to have a good grant program, because I don't see the money flowing through standard funding. I see it being specialized requests.
Perfect. Thank you, Mike. Are there any other questions? It looks like that's it. All right, everybody. Well, we have a question that just came in. Cannot download the PDF when I click on it. Chrome says duplicate headers received from server. So what we will do, everybody, for all attendees and registrants, we'll send out an email that not only has a link to the on-demand recording of this webinar, we'll include a link to the PDF as well. So we'll make sure we get that in everybody's hands.
One thing I might add, if you found this information, beneficial and you want to dig further, maybe do a specific webinar or discussion for your individual schools, please reach out to the folks at Data Link Networks and they can connect you up with all of us.
All right, thank you much, Mike. And everybody, thank you so much for attending. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thanks.